ex-husband called during our daughter's chemo appointment. How is she doing with the money I sent? Has the premium protocol helped? I just laughed. What premium protocol? Olivia was hooked to standard chemo because we couldn't afford the gentle treatment. Behind me, Jared's coffee mug shattered against the floor. She doesn't have premium care. We can barely even afford parking at the hospital. My ex's voice turned sharp. The $800 I send every month for Olivia's immunotherapy and supplements. Jared tried to hang up the call, but I turned away from him. You haven't sent anything. She's getting worse. We would have used it. I've sent $800 monthly for 3 years. I'm texting you the proof right now. Screenshots flooded my phone. Direct deposits. Routing number ending in 3789. That was Jared's personal account. I work double shifts at the warehouse. My ex continued, voice cracking. Sleep 4 hours a night. Anything for Olivia. I calculated quickly while the room tilted. $800 times 36 months. $28,800. The exact cost of the premium treatment that would have prevented everything. Olivia's kidney damage from the harsh chemo. Her heart problems that keep her up at night. The cognitive delays that make her cry when she can't remember things. You've been stealing her medical money, I said, staring at Jared. He shrugged. I provide for this family, not him. My ex's voice broke completely. I haven't bought new clothes in 3 years. Eat 2 meals a day thinking I was saving her. She sold her American Girl doll. The words exploded out of me. Her dead grandma's last gift. Cried for hours but said gastro chemo matters more than dolls, mommy. Kids don't need. You always said we're in this together. I watched you eat plain noodles night after night so she could have vegetables. I thought we were in this together. We don't need is. She pretends she hates McDonald's. 9 years old, lying about not wanting Happy Meals because she knows we can't afford them after chemo. My voice kept rising. Every Christmas, every birthday, you watch me make origami flowers because it's all we can afford. Olivia hugs me and says, this is better than toys. Well, you had $28,000. I grabbed his phone, my hands shaking so hard I could barely hold it. Credit card statements filled the screen. Who's Brianna? Why are there steakhouse charges? $300 dinners? Business meetings? His wallet fell open as he gestured, receipts spilling onto the floor. I bent down, picked one up. Brianna's name, with a heart drawn next to it. Oh, okay, so you had to buy Tiffany jewelry for business meetings? I had no idea your boss was a man who enjoyed a yellow heart pendant. Don't be like this. Oh, I see your boss also enjoys first-class flights to Hawaii and hotel rooms in Vegas. You guys really get along well, huh? Says here you shared an ensuite with a queen-sized bed. How sweet. Jared looked at me with pleading eyes that once melted my heart. Now they made me colder. I kept scrolling, each discovery worse than the last. First joint accounts, then shared credit cards, then you have an effing apartment by the waterfront. We share one room so Olivia could have medicine. She whispers at night so she won't wake you. It's not what you think. Something else caught my eye in his photos. A prescription bottle on a bathroom counter. Prenatal vitamins. Who is she, Jared? He went silent, his eyes fixating on his fiddling thumbs like it could turn back time. Who is she? Juliet, I love you. But Brianna reminds me of life before all the hospitals and when your jacket was stolen, Olivia worried about you being cold. Made you a scarf from her old blankets. I tell her every night that we're the luckiest girls in the world because Jared chose to love us. Tears streamed down my face. Remember when you said you were working late? These receipts show you were at Morton's Steakhouse while we ate oatmeal for dinner. Juliet, calm down. The Make-A-Wish form. My voice broke completely. She wrote, I wish my mom could sleep properly because she hears me crying all night, terrified she won't wake up. This is exactly why I need space sometimes. His car keys hit the floor as he backed away. That's when I saw it. A tube of lipstick tangled in the keychain. 40 years, I screamed. Doctor said she lost 40 years of life expectancy. The premium protocol would have prevented organ damage. You knew. You had the money. She's doing fine with the standard. My voice shook with rage. She made me promise to donate her toys when it happens. She's 9, Jared. 9 years old, planning her death while you wine and dine Brianna. I care about Olivia. Care? You let her organs fail for your mistress. Brianna gets dinners and diamonds. Olivia gets permanent organ damage. That's what your love looks like. I'm calling 911, my ex said, suddenly calm and deadly. This is attempted murder. Through the window, red and blue lights flashed. That's when my phone buzzed. It was a text from the hospital. The message said Olivia's white blood cell count had dropped to critical levels, and they needed me there right away. My legs moved before my brain caught up, grabbing my keys and shoving past Jared, who tried to block the door. Outside, 2 officers were getting out of their patrol car while my ex's voice still came through the phone asking what was happening. I told the officers my daughter was having a medical emergency, and I had to get to the hospital immediately. The younger one started asking about the domestic situation, but I cut him off, showing him the hospital text on my phone. They took down my name and phone number while I threw myself into my car. My ex still on speaker, promising to email all the bank records showing the stolen money to whatever case number they gave him. The drive to the hospital took 12 minutes but felt like hours. My hands gripping the wheel so tight my knuckles went white. I parked crooked in the emergency lot and ran through the sliding doors, past the waiting room full of sick people, straight to the elevator. Dr. Allegra Whitaker was waiting in the hallway outside Olivia's room, her face serious in that way doctors get when they have bad news. She explained that Olivia had reacted badly to the harsh chemo drugs, her kidneys showing more stress than they'd seen before in someone her age. The creatinine levels were through the roof, and they'd had to stop the treatment mid-cycle to prevent complete kidney failure. I pushed past her into the room where Olivia lay sleeping, her face so pale it almost glowed under the harsh hospital lights. The machines beeped steadily, tracking her heart rate and oxygen levels, while an IV dripped clear fluid into her tiny arm. I sat in the plastic chair beside her bed and pulled out my phone to text my ex that she was stable for now, but the organ damage was getting worse with each treatment. His response came back instantly asking if I needed him there, if he should leave work early. I stared at Olivia's chest rising and falling, counting her breaths like I used to when she was a baby. 20 minutes passed before someone knocked on the door. A woman with a clipboard and kind eyes who introduced herself as Jolene Rivers from Social Services. She said she'd seen the financial hardship flags in Olivia's file and wanted to check if we needed assistance with medical costs or transportation. The words started pouring out of me about the stolen money, my hands shaking as I showed her the screenshots on my phone of all those deposits my ex had sent. Her eyes went wide when she saw the proof. 36 months of $800 payments going straight into Jared's personal account instead of Olivia's care. She sat down heavily in the other chair and started explaining emergency assistance programs, saying this counted as medical neglect through financial abuse. There were forms we could file immediately. Emergency grants for families whose medical funds had been diverted. Programs specifically for children whose care had been compromised by guardian theft. She pulled out her tablet and started typing notes about our case while I watched Olivia sleep, her eyelashes casting shadows on her hollow cheeks. Dr. Whitaker came back an hour later with a stack of papers explaining treatment options, showing me charts of what the premium protocol could have prevented. The gentle immunotherapy drugs would have protected her kidneys and heart, avoided the cognitive delays that made her cry when she couldn't remember her teacher's name. The organ stress might still improve if we switched to the gentler drugs now, but the damage already done would take years to repair if it ever fully healed. The new protocol would cost even more than before, because now we needed additional medications to protect her failing organs while treating the cancer. I asked to use the computer at the nurse's station to access our medical portals, my fingers flying across the keyboard as I locked Jared out of everything. Every password got changed, every emergency contact updated, his access revoked from her school records and insurance accounts. My hands shook as I removed him from the authorized pickup list at her school and deleted him as her emergency contact, replacing his name with my ex's information instead. The sun had set hours ago when I finally returned to Olivia's room, finding her awake and asking weakly for water. I helped her take small sips through a bendy straw, her hands too weak to hold the cup herself. She fell back asleep within minutes, exhausted from the simple effort of drinking. Around midnight, footsteps echoed in the hallway, and my ex appeared in the doorway, still wearing his warehouse uniform covered in dust and sweat. We didn't hug or say much, just nodded at each other and turned our attention to Olivia, both of us focused completely on watching her breathe. He pulled up a chair on the other side of her bed, and we sat there in silence. Two parents who couldn't fix their marriage but could still show up for their dying daughter. I wonder what made Jared think he could pull this off for 3 whole years without anyone finding out about the money going into his account. There's something really strange about how calm he seems when caught, just shrugging and saying he provides for the family while stealing from a sick child. The next morning my phone rang while I was dozing in the chair, the responding officers calling to say they'd opened a financial crimes case. They needed me to come give a full statement about the theft, bring any documentation I had about the diverted funds. I told them I couldn't leave Olivia today but could come tomorrow if her condition condition stayed stable and they said that would work, giving me a case number to reference. My phone started buzzing nonstop while I sat there watching Olivia sleep. Jared's messages flooded my screen, first saying he was sorry and made mistakes, then switching to threats about telling Olivia I was keeping him away from her. I screenshot every single text and forwarded them straight to the case number the officer gave me. My hands shook as I scrolled through message after message where he blamed me for overreacting and then threatened to destroy me in court. I blocked his number after capturing everything and called our apartment manager from the hospital hallway. The manager said she could send someone to change the locks right away if I paid the emergency fee. I gave her my credit card number even though it meant we'd be eating ramen for the next week. She promised the maintenance guy would do it within 2 hours and leave the new keys at the office. My phone rang again, and this time it was Detective Russell Pace introducing himself as the financial crimes investigator on our case. His voice sounded calm and professional as he explained he'd seen situations like this before with diverted medical funds. He asked if I could bring any documentation I had to the station, but understood when I said I couldn't leave Olivia yet. We scheduled a meeting for later in the week, and he gave me his direct number in case anything urgent came up. The hospital billing specialist knocked on Olivia's door holding a thick folder of papers. She said Jolene's report triggered an automatic review of our account, and they discovered we qualified for charity care nobody ever told us about. They were starting to process 3 months of retroactive adjustments that could save us thousands of dollars we'd already paid. She showed me forms where our income level meant we should have been getting 70% coverage this whole time. My ex texted saying he'd gone to the bank and gotten notarized copies of every single deposit he'd made for 3 years. The PDF files started arriving on my phone showing 36 payments of exactly $800 each month. He included a signed statement saying he'd testify in court about sending money specifically for Olivia's medical care and supplements. Dr. Whitaker came back with another doctor who specialized in pediatric oncology treatment modifications. They explained Olivia's organ stress meant we needed to switch protocols immediately to prevent more damage. The specialist recommended a gentler immunotherapy combination that insurance might partially cover if we got the right documentation together. He wrote out the names of the drugs and said we could start within 48 hours if the paperwork went through. I told my ex I needed to go home and get some things while he stayed with Olivia. Our apartment felt different knowing Jared couldn't get back in with his old key. I went straight to his gym bag in the closet and dumped everything out on the bed. More credit card statements fell out, ones I'd never seen before with charges for furniture stores and baby supplies from last month. There were receipts for a 2-bedroom apartment deposit near the waterfront and purchases from Babies R Us dated 3 weeks ago. I took photos of everything and shoved it all in a grocery bag to give the detective later. Back at the hospital, Jolene sat with me in the family lounge going through emergency grant applications line by line. The forms asked about income and expenses and medical history, and I kept having to look things up on my phone. She explained travel vouchers that would cover gas and parking for hospital visits, which would save us almost $200 a month. We filled out applications for 3 different programs, and she said at least one would probably come through within 2 weeks. Detective Pace arrived the next afternoon with a recording device and notebook. We sat in a quiet family room down the hall from Olivia while I showed him every receipt and photo I'd found. He asked specific questions about the timeline of when I discovered the prenatal vitamins and when Jared started spending the money. I gave him the grocery bag full of evidence, and he labeled each item with sticky notes while asking more questions. He wanted to know exact dates and amounts, and I pulled up our bank statements on my phone to help him build the timeline. The interview took almost 2 hours, and he said this was one of the clearest cases of financial abuse he'd seen. Olivia woke up while I was getting her juice from the vending machine and asked why we never had money for McDonald's if Daddy Jared had a job. Her voice was so small and confused as she said other kids at the school got Happy Meals all the time. I sat on her bed and explained that sometimes adults make bad choices with money, but we were fixing it now. She asked if that meant we could get French fries soon, and I promised her we'd get some when she felt better. My ex and I spent the evening making a shared calendar on our phones for all her appointments and medications. We agreed to both have full access to her medical records and split any decisions about her treatment going forward. The calendar already had 12 appointments for the next month, including labs and scans and specialist visits. 2 days later, my phone rang while I was sorting through more medical bills at the kitchen table. The bank's fraud department wanted to talk about accounts opened in my name that showed suspicious activity patterns. The woman on the phone listed off 3 credit cards and 2 checking accounts I'd never heard of, all opened using my social security number over the past 18 months. She said they'd frozen everything after detecting unusual spending patterns that didn't match my normal financial behavior. I wrote down all the account numbers and reference codes while she explained they'd need me to file police reports to start the fraud investigation that might eventually return some of the stolen money. After hanging up, I added this new information to the growing pile of evidence I was collecting for Detective Pace. The next morning at the hospital, I was helping Olivia with her breakfast when the nurse at the station called out that someone was here to see us. Jared stood there holding a huge bouquet of roses and wearing his best shirt, the one I'd bought him for his last birthday. He started walking toward Olivia's room, but I jumped up and blocked the doorway while the nurse watched nervously. I showed her the police report number I kept in my wallet now and explained he wasn't allowed near my daughter anymore. She immediately called security, and 2 guards arrived within minutes to escort him out while he kept saying he just wanted to see how Olivia was doing. I watched through the window as they walked him all the way to the parking garage to make sure he actually left. That afternoon, Dr. Whitaker knocked on our door with an actual smile on her face for the first time in weeks. She had Olivia's latest test results showing her white blood cell count had stabilized, and her kidney function numbers looked better than they had in months. The new supportive medications were working better than expected, and Olivia had slept through the entire night without waking up in pain. Dr. Whitaker said it was a small victory, but after everything we'd been through, small victories mattered. I held on to those test results and actually felt something besides fear for the first time in days. Detective Pace called the next day saying he'd interviewed Brianna at her waterfront apartment, and she'd been completely shocked to learn where Jared's money really came from. She showed him receipts and text messages where Jared claimed he'd gotten a big promotion at work, plus an inheritance from an uncle who died last year. Brianna gave the detective copies of everything, including bank statements showing Jared had been paying for her apartment and sending her money for baby supplies. She agreed to testify if needed and said she was leaving him immediately now that she knew the truth. The patient navigator stopped by Olivia's room later that week with a folder full of information about clinical trials. She explained that Olivia would have qualified for an amazing new treatment program if she hadn't already suffered organ damage from the harsh chemo. We couldn't get into that one anymore, but there was a second-tier trial starting next month that might help with some of her symptoms. The navigator helped me fill out the preliminary application and said we'd know within 2 weeks if Olivia qualified. My ex came by that evening after his warehouse shift, and we sat in the hospital cafeteria while Olivia slept. He told me about last year when his car broke down and he needed $800 for a new transmission. He'd been so close to using that month's payment for Olivia, but couldn't stop thinking about her getting the treatment she needed. He'd borrowed money from a coworker and taken extra shifts to pay it back, all while believing his sacrifice was helping her get better. His voice cracked when he said he would have sent twice as much if he'd known she wasn't getting the premium protocol. Jolene knocked on the door Tuesday afternoon with information about a support group for parents of sick kids that met in the hospital's family center. She said it might help to talk to other parents going through similar situations. I went that evening mostly because I didn't want to seem ungrateful for all her help. The room had about 15 parents sitting in a circle, and I mostly just listened as they shared stories about losing their homes to medical debt and choosing between groceries and copays. What exactly made the bank's fraud department finally notice 3 credit cards and 2 checking accounts opened in her name over 18 months? The timing feels oddly convenient right after she discovers everything else. One mom talked about selling her wedding ring to pay for her son's surgery, and another dad described working 3 jobs while his wife stayed at the hospital. Everyone nodded like these were normal things that happened when your kid got sick. Detective Pace called Wednesday morning saying he'd gotten a warrant for all of Jared's financial records based on the evidence we'd provided. The judge signed it immediately after seeing the pattern of theft, and the district attorney was already interested in pressing serious charges. He said cases this clear with documented evidence of money meant for a sick child being diverted were exactly the kind prosecutors wanted to pursue. The detective would be getting Jared's records from banks and credit card companies over the next few days and expected to find even more evidence of theft. Thursday afternoon, while I was reading to Olivia, her teacher called about setting up accommodations for when she returned to the school. She explained that Olivia's cognitive delays from treatment meant she'd need extra time on tests and assignments plus permission to rest in the nurse's office when she got tired. We scheduled a meeting meeting for next week to create an official plan that would follow Olivia through the rest of the school year. The teacher said she'd already noticed Olivia struggling to remember things she'd known before and wanted to make sure she had all the support she needed. I hung up feeling grateful that at least school would be one less thing to worry about when Olivia was well enough to go back. Friday morning, the bank called while I was washing Olivia's hospital gown in the sink. The fraud investigator said they'd found credit cards Jared opened using my social security number without my permission. He'd bought first-class tickets to Hawaii last summer when I was selling plasma to pay for Olivia's anti-nausea meds. The Vegas trip happened the same week Olivia had her worst reaction to chemo, and I slept on the hospital floor for 5 nights straight. The investigator marked all these charges as fraud and said they'd eventually reverse them back to me, but it could take months. I wrote down the case number on the back of a hospital menu while watching Olivia sleep through her morning dose of pain meds. Dr. Whitaker knocked on the door around noon and asked if we could talk in the family consultation room down the hall. She closed the door behind us and pulled out Olivia's latest test results, spreading them across the small table. The kidney function numbers made her pause before she started explaining what they meant for Olivia's future. She said the organ damage from the harsh chemo was permanent, and we'd need to manage it carefully for the rest of Olivia's life. Her kidneys would always work harder than they should, and her heart would need regular monitoring. The cognitive delays might improve slightly with therapy, but some of the damage couldn't be reversed. She explained that with proper care, Olivia could still have a good quality of life, but she'd always face higher risks than other kids. Every cold could turn serious, and every fever would mean a hospital visit. I asked about life expectancy, and Dr. Whitaker took a deep breath before answering. She said it was hard to predict exactly, but the organ damage had definitely shortened Olivia's expected lifespan by decades. With the premium protocol, we could have avoided most of this damage, but now we had to work with what we had. I nodded and thanked her for being honest, while my hands gripped the edge of the table so hard my knuckles turned white. Saturday afternoon, a courier delivered an envelope from a law firm downtown. Jared's lawyer had sent a cease and desist letter claiming I was harassing him and damaging his reputation. The letter threatened defamation lawsuits if I continued talking about the stolen money and demanded I stop all contact immediately. I took a photo of every page and forwarded them to Detective Pace, who called back within an hour. He said this was a common intimidation tactic that wouldn't go anywhere since everything I'd said was true and documented. He told me to save the letter as evidence of Jared trying to silence me about his crimes. Monday morning, my ex met me in the hospital billing office to discuss payment plans. The billing specialist spread out stacks of invoices showing what insurance covered and what we still owed after grants and charity care. Even with all the help, the remaining balance was more than either of us made in a year. We agreed to each pay what we could afford monthly with everything documented and going directly to the hospital. My ex would send $300 a month and I'd send $200, both of us signing forms that showed exactly where the money went. The billing specialist set up automatic payments so neither of us had to worry about missing a month. Tuesday afternoon, Jolene came by with a laptop and helped me write my victim impact statement for the criminal case. She said the prosecutor needed details about how Jared's theft affected Olivia's health and our family's well-being. We sat in the hospital cafeteria while I typed out everything, starting with Olivia selling her American Girl doll and ending with her permanent organ damage. Jolene helped me organize my thoughts into clear sections about the medical consequences, the financial devastation, and the emotional trauma. Writing it all down in order made me angry all over again, especially the part about Olivia losing 40 years of life expectancy. Jolene reviewed the draft and said it was powerful evidence that would help the prosecutor show the real harm Jared caused. Wednesday was Olivia's first really good day in weeks. She woke up hungry and ate a whole bowl of cereal without throwing up. The morning cartoons made her laugh for the first time in forever, and she asked if we could play cards. We played Go Fish for an hour and she won 3 games in a row, her face lighting up every time she got a match. At lunch, she ate half a sandwich and kept it down, then asked for ice cream, which the nurse said was a great sign. I took a photo of her eating the ice cream with chocolate sauce dripping down her chin, her smile so big it made my chest hurt. I saved the photo to my phone to remind myself why we were fighting through all this legal mess with Jared. Thursday, Detective Pace called with an update on the investigation. He traced the waterfront apartment lease payments back to the same account where my ex's child support money was deposited. Every single rent payment for that apartment came directly from funds meant for Olivia's medical care. The connection was so clear that it significantly strengthened the criminal case against Jared. The detective said this kind of direct evidence made prosecution much easier. Friday morning, I got a text from an unknown number that Detective Pace quickly confirmed was from Brianna. She'd given her phone to the detective so all communication would be documented for the case. Her message said she was sorry and hadn't known the money came from a sick child's medical fund. She confirmed she was pregnant with Jared's baby and was leaving him immediately. She was willing to testify about all his lies, including how he told her he got a promotion and an inheritance from a dead uncle. The detective said her cooperation would help prove Jared's pattern of deception. Saturday afternoon, Olivia asked about Make-A-Wish while we were reading books in her hospital bed. She wanted to know if she could still do it when she felt better since she'd heard other kids talking about their wishes. I told her we'd definitely revisit it once the new treatments showed more progress and she was stable enough to travel or do activities. She said she wanted to swim with dolphins, but would wait as long as it took to get strong enough. I promised we'd make it happen someday, not telling her it might be years before she'd be well enough or something like that. Sunday, Detective Pace sent me copies of ATM withdrawal records he'd uncovered during his investigation. Every withdrawal matched dates when Jared claimed he was working late at the office. The ATM locations were all near expensive restaurants where he'd taken Brianna for dinner. The timeline showed that while Olivia was getting her harshest chemo treatments and throwing up blood, Jared was withdrawing cash for $100 dinners. One withdrawal happened the exact same night Olivia's kidneys first showed signs of damage. Another matched the day she had seizures from the treatment toxicity. The detective said this evidence showed clear intent to deceive and would be powerful in court. Monday morning, a woman from the prosecutor's office called and said she was a victim's advocate assigned to help us navigate the legal system. She came to the hospital that afternoon with a thick folder of paperwork and sat across from me in the family lounge while Olivia napped. She explained we could either wait for criminal restitution, which might take years, or file a separate civil lawsuit right away for damages. I looked at the form she spread across the coffee table and asked which option would be faster. She said criminal charges were already moving quicker than expected because Detective Pace had built such a strong case with clear evidence. We decided to focus on the criminal case first, since the prosecutor seemed confident about getting a conviction. She helped me fill out victim impact forms and explained how the court process would work over the coming months. Tuesday morning, Dr. Whitaker knocked on Olivia's door with actual good news for once. The hospital board had approved her request to start Olivia on a newer adjunct therapy that could help reduce some of her symptoms. She showed me the treatment plan on her tablet and explained it wasn't the premium protocol we should have had 3 years ago, but it was definitely better than the harsh standard chemo Olivia had been enduring. The timing of these ATM withdrawals matching Olivia's worst medical moments makes me wonder if Jared even thought about his daughter during those fancy dinners. His lawyer sending threats while the detective builds a case shows someone who's really scrambling right now. The new medicine would be gentler on her organs and might even improve some of her cognitive issues over time. Olivia would start the new treatment Thursday if her blood work looked stable enough. Wednesday, Detective Pace called to tell me the district attorney had officially filed charges against Jared. The charges included theft by deception and financial abuse of a vulnerable person, which were both serious felonies in our state. He said these weren't just minor charges that would result in probation, but actual crimes that could mean real jail time if Jared was convicted. The detective explained that stealing money meant for a sick child's medical care was something prosecutors and judges took very seriously. He'd seen similar cases result in multi-year prison sentences. Thursday afternoon, while I was helping Olivia with her new medicine schedule, my phone buzzed with a voicemail from Jared. His voice was shaky, and he was crying about how stressed he'd been trying to provide for our family. He kept saying we were family, and that I was ruining his life over a misunderstanding. I saved the voicemail immediately and forwarded it to Detective Pace without listening to the whole thing. I felt nothing but cold determination to protect Olivia from any more of his lies and manipulation. Friday, the hospital's emergency grant committee sent an approval letter for partial funding of next month's treatments. Jolene had helped push the application through their expedited process, and they'd approved about 60% of what we needed. It wasn't everything, but it took the immediate pressure off while we waited for the criminal case to move forward and hopefully get some restitution. The grant would cover Olivia's main medications and most of the new adjunct therapy Dr. Whitaker had started. Saturday morning, Detective Pace texted that Jared had been formally notified of the charges and had hired a defense attorney. The lawyer was already trying to negotiate some kind of plea deal, but the prosecutor wasn't interested in going easy on him. She told the defense attorney they had bank records, witness testimony from Brianna, and 3 years of evidence showing systematic theft. The prosecutor wanted jail time, not just probation or community service. Sunday, I went to the courthouse to file for a protective order to keep Jared away from both Olivia and me during the legal proceedings. The clerk gave me the forms and helped me fill them out properly while explaining the process. The hearing was scheduled for next Thursday, and my ex had already agreed to come as a witness to testify about the money he'd sent for Olivia's care. I also submitted the threatening voicemail as evidence of why we needed protection. Monday, Dr. Whitaker came by with Olivia's latest lab results and actually smiled for the first time in weeks. Some of the blood markers showed small improvements, even though the organ damage remained unchanged from before. She called it a win considering where we'd started and said the new therapy was already helping more than she'd expected. I was learning to celebrate these small victories instead of only focusing on what couldn't be fixed. Tuesday, my ex and I worked out a new routine for handling Olivia's complicated medication schedule. He would come by every morning before his warehouse shift to help with the morning doses, while I handled all the evening medications and overnight monitoring. We communicated through brief texts about any changes in her condition and quick phone calls to coordinate doctor appointments. We kept everything focused completely on Olivia without bringing up our old problems or trying to figure out what went wrong between us. Wednesday afternoon, Jolene stopped by to officially close our initial case file since the emergency assistance was now in place. She said she'd stay available for any questions and strongly encouraged me to keep attending the Tuesday night support group for parents of sick kids. She could see I was getting better at navigating the system and advocating for Olivia, but recognized I was still exhausted from managing everything alone. The criminal case was moving forward, the medical treatment was improving, and we finally had some financial help, but I still felt like I was barely keeping my head above water most days. Thursday morning, I sat in the courthouse waiting room with my hands folded tight in my lap. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for 9, and Detective Pace had told me to arrive early. My ex showed up at 8:30 wearing his warehouse uniform since he had to go straight to work after. The prosecutor, a woman with short gray hair and thick glasses, reviewed my statement one more time before we went in. Jared walked in with his lawyer right before 9, avoiding eye contact with everyone. The judge listened to the evidence for about an hour, looking through bank statements and the screenshots I'd provided. She asked Jared's lawyer a few questions about the diverted funds. The defense tried arguing it was a domestic dispute over shared finances. The prosecutor showed the routing numbers proving the money came directly from my ex's account meant for medical care. After 90 minutes, the judge ruled there was sufficient evidence for trial. She granted the protective order immediately and told Jared he had 24 hours to surrender any keys to our apartment. His lawyer whispered something to him, and they left quickly through the side door. That afternoon, the bank called with better news than I'd expected. They were issuing provisional credits for $3,000 worth of the fraudulent charges while their investigation continued. The money would hit my account within 2 business days. It wasn't close to everything stolen, but it would cover Olivia's next round of medication copays. I texted my ex the update, and he replied with a thumbs up emoji. Tuesday night at the support group, I finally shared our whole story with the other parents. One woman started crying when I described Olivia selling her doll. Another dad shook his head when I explained about the stolen $28,000. After the meeting, they pulled me aside with an envelope. They'd started a small fundraiser without telling me, each family contributing what they could. The envelope had almost $2,000 in cash and checks. I stood there in the church basement crying while they hugged me. The money would cover 2 full months of medication copays that insurance didn't touch. Wednesday, I was cleaning out the closet when I found it stuffed behind old blankets. The scarf Olivia had made for Jared from her hospital blankets, carefully knitted despite her shaking hands. She'd spent weeks on it last winter, working a few rows each day between treatments. The yarn was soft and pale blue, the same color as her favorite stuffed animal. I held it for a minute, remembering how proud she'd been to give it to him. Then I folded it carefully and put it in a storage box on the top shelf. Olivia never asked about it, and I never brought it up. We were both moving forward now. 3 months passed faster than I expected. Jared's trial date was set for next month, and the prosecutor felt confident about conviction. The bank had recovered another $4,000 in fraudulent charges through their investigation. Olivia's new treatment protocol was working better than anyone hoped. Her kidney function hadn't improved, but it had stopped getting worse. The cognitive delays were still there, but she was having more good days than bad. My ex and I had developed a routine that actually worked. He handled morning meds before his warehouse shift, while I managed evenings and overnight monitoring. We communicated through brief texts about dosages and doctor updates. No long conversations about the past or what went wrong between us. Just focus on Olivia. Saturday afternoon, I heard Olivia laughing from her room. She made paper flowers from old magazines and arranged them in a vase on her dresser. She asked if we could get Chinese food for dinner, actually asking for something she wanted instead of pretending she wasn't hungry. I ordered her favorite orange chicken and fried rice. We ate together at the kitchen table while she told me about a book she was reading. She smiled more that day than she had in months. The new medications caused less nausea, and she could actually enjoy food again. Sunday was her 10th birthday. My ex arrived at noon with a chocolate cake from the grocery store bakery and 3 wrapped presents he'd been saving for: a new coloring book, a small Lego set, and fuzzy purple slippers she'd pointed out months ago. We sang happy birthday together in our small apartment. Olivia blew out the candles in one breath and made a wish she wouldn't tell us. My ex and I sat on opposite sides of the table, but we were both there for her. Different from before, but somehow stronger as parents. That night after my ex left and Olivia was asleep, I sat at the kitchen table with all our paperwork spread out. The treatment plan from Dr. Whitaker showing steady progress, the court documents moving forward on schedule, the bank statements showing recovered funds slowly accumulating, the support group contact list of people who actually understood, the boundaries we'd established that protected us. We weren't drowning anymore. Thanks for riding along with me through all those twists and turns. Definitely felt like a whole journey just wondering about things together. Can't wait to do it again next time. Like the video, it helps more than you think.